The wind howled across the Montana plains, carrying the scent of dust and freedom, but it couldn't drown out the thudding of my heart. I stood at the edge of the Double Creek Ranch, my boots sinking into the dry earth, staring at a life I'd never imagined. I was here to fix fences, mend my past, and maybe, just maybe, find a piece of myself I'd lost. My name is Elliot Harper, a 28-year-old city kid from Seattle, running from a corporate job that chewed me up and spat me out. Burnout doesn't begin to describe it. Endless meetings, fake smiles, and a boss who thought empathy was a buzzword. So when my cousin Mia, a ranch hand at Double Creek, mentioned they needed help for the summer, I packed a bag and left without looking back. I wasn't naive. I knew ranch work would be brutal. But I craved something real, something that would blister my hands and quiet the noise in my head. The ranch sprawled before me, a patchwork of golden fields and weathered barns under a sky so wide it felt like it could swallow you whole. Mia greeted me with a quick hug and a warning. The boss is tough, but fair. Just don't expect a warm welcome from Caleb. Caleb Monroe, the 32-year-old cowboy who ran the place, was a local legend, stoic, solitary, and supposedly allergic to outsiders. Mia's smirk told me I was in for a challenge. I met him that afternoon by the main barn. He was exactly as I'd pictured, tall, broad-shouldered, with a face carved from years of sun and struggle. His hazel eyes flicked over me, sharp and unyielding, like he was sizing up a stray dog. "You're the city boy Mia dragged in?" he asked, his voice low and rough, like gravel under boots. I nodded, forcing a smile. "Elliot, here to help." He snorted, tipping his hat back. "We don't need help, especially not from someone who's never touched a fence post in his life." His words stung, but there was something else in his tone, something guarded, like he was testing me. I squared my shoulders. "I'm a quick learner. Give me a chance." Caleb didn't answer. He just turned and walked away, leaving me standing there, my resolve wavering under the weight of his dismissal. Mia clapped me on the back. "Don't take it personal. He's like that with everyone." But as I watched Caleb disappear into the barn, his silhouette framed against the fading light, I couldn't shake the feeling that his rejection wasn't just about my inexperience. That first week was a blur of aching muscles and bruised pride. I learned to mend fences, haul hay, and wrangle stubborn calves, all under the watchful eyes of the ranch hands. A diverse crew of locals and drifters, each with their own stories. There was Rosa, a 40-year-old Mexican-American woman with a laugh that could light up the night, and Jamal, a 25-year-old former Marine who treated me like a little brother. They welcomed me, but Caleb kept his distance, barking orders without meeting my gaze. One evening, after a long day of repairing a broken gate, I found myself alone by the fire pit, the stars blazing above. The other hands had turned in, but I couldn't sleep. The city felt like a lifetime ago, yet the emptiness I'd carried with me still lingered. I was so lost in thought I didn't hear Caleb approach until he spoke. "You're still here," he said. Not a question but a statement, like he was surprised I hadn't quit. "Didn't come all this way to run," I replied, staring into the fire. He sat across from me, the flames casting shadows on his face. For the first time, I noticed the lines around his eyes, the weight he carried in his silence. "Why'd you come?" he asked, his voice softer now, almost curious. I hesitated. How do you explain a life unraveling? "To find something worth doing," I said finally. "Something that matters." He didn't respond, but his gaze held mine, and for a moment, the world felt smaller. Just the two of us, the fire, and the vast Montana night. The next day, Caleb assigned me to work with him directly, repairing a stretch of fence on the ranch's northern boundary. It was grueling work, but there was a rhythm to it, a quiet partnership as we drove posts into the earth. He didn't talk much, but when he did, it was to correct my technique or point out a hawk circling overhead. Once, our hands brushed as we passed a tool, and I felt a jolt, like static electricity but deeper, warmer. His eyes flicked to mine, then away, and I wondered if he'd felt it too. By the end of the second week, I was starting to feel like I belonged. The ranch was more than a job. It was a community, a refuge for people who didn't fit anywhere else. Rosa shared stories of her family's migration from Mexico, and Jamal taught me how to whistle through a blade of grass. Even Caleb softened, offering a rare nod of approval when I fixed a gate without his help. But there was still a wall between us, one I couldn't name but felt every time our eyes met. One night, a storm rolled in, fierce and unrelenting. Lightning cracked the sky, and the cattle spooked, breaking through a weak fence. Caleb rallied the hands, and we rode out into the chaos, rain lashing our faces. I was terrified but determined, following Caleb's lead as we herded the cattle back. When a calf bolted toward a ravine, I didn't think. I just ran, grabbing it before it could fall. Caleb was there in an instant, his hand on my arm, pulling me back from the edge. "You're gonna get yourself killed," he growled, but his grip lingered, steady and warm. We stood there, soaked to the bone, the storm raging around us. His face was inches from mine, and for a heartbeat, I thought he might say something real. But he let go and turned away, leaving me breathless and confused. As we rode back to the ranch, the rain washing away the adrenaline, I realized I wasn't just here to fix fences. I was chasing something I couldn't yet name, something tied to the cowboy who refused my help but kept pulling me closer. The days blurred into weeks, and the ranch became my world, a place where the ache in my muscles matched the ache in my heart. Caleb's presence was a constant pull, like gravity, drawing me in even as he pushed me away. Every glance, every fleeting touch, felt like a question neither of us dared to answer. I started noticing things about him. The way he'd pause to watch the sunrise, his hands still on the reins, or how he'd hum an old country tune when he thought no one was listening. He was a paradox. A man who commanded respect from everyone on the ranch yet seemed to carry a private war in his chest. I wanted to know him, to understand the shadows in his eyes, but every time I got close, he'd retreat behind that wall of his. One morning, Rosa caught me staring as Caleb rode out to check the herd. "Careful, city boy," she said with a knowing grin. "That one's got a heart bigger than Montana, but it's locked up tighter than Fort Knox." I laughed it off, but her words stuck. What was I doing? Chasing a man who barely acknowledged me. And yet I couldn't stop. That afternoon, Caleb and I were tasked with moving a herd to a new pasture. The work was intense, demanding focus, but there was a quiet intimacy in it. Our horses moving in sync, our shouts echoing across the plains. At one point, a steer broke from the group, and we chased it down together, our laughter cutting through the dust. When we finally stopped, breathless and triumphant, Caleb looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time. "You're not half bad at this," he said, a half smile tugging at his lips. It was the closest thing to a compliment I'd gotten from him, and it lit something inside me. That evening, we sat by the fire again, just the two of us. The other hands were in town for a rare night off, leaving the ranch quiet except for the crackle of the flames. I took a chance. "What's your story, Caleb?" I asked, my voice steady despite the nerves. You've been here your whole life, haven't you? He stared into the fire, his jaw tight. Born and raised, he said finally. This ranch is all I've got, all I've ever wanted. There was a weight to his words, a longing I couldn't place. I pressed further, reckless. No family? No one special. His eyes snapped to mine, sharp and searching, and for a moment, I thought I'd crossed a line. Then he looked away, his voice barely above a whisper. Not anymore. The silence that followed was heavy, filled with unspoken truths. I wanted to reach out, to bridge the gap between us, but I didn't know how. Instead, I shared a piece of myself. I left someone back in Seattle, I said, surprising myself. Not a lover, just a life that wasn't mine. I thought I could outrun it, but it's still there, waiting. Caleb's gaze softened, and for the first time, I saw something like understanding in his eyes. The next day, a crisis hit. A neighbor's fence had collapsed, and their cattle had wandered onto Double Creek land, mixing with ours. Caleb was furious, not at the neighbor, but at the chaos it caused. We spent hours sorting the herds, and I saw a side of him I hadn't before. Relentless, focused, but also protective. When a young hand named Lila nearly got trampled, Caleb was there in an instant, pulling her to safety. He didn't yell or lecture. He just checked her over, his hands gentle but firm, and sent her to rest. That night, as we cleaned up in the barn, I found myself alone with him again. The air was thick with the scent of hay and leather, and the tension between us was palpable. "You're good at this," I said, breaking the silence. "Taking care of people." He paused, a pitchfork in his hands, and looked at me. "Not always," he said, his voice raw. "I've let people down, people I cared about." I stepped closer, my heart pounding. "You don't have to carry that alone." For a moment he didn't move, didn't speak. Then he set the pitchfork down and closed the distance between us. His hand brushed my arm, tentative, like he was testing the waters. "You don't know what you're asking," he murmured. But his eyes told a different story, one of longing, fear, and something deeper. Before I could respond, Jamal burst in, calling for Caleb about a sick horse. The moment shattered, and Caleb pulled away, his walls snapping back into place. But as he walked off, he glanced back at me, and that glance held a promise, a spark that refused to die. The summer heat settled over Double Creek like a heavy blanket, and with it came a shift in the air between Caleb and me. Every touch, every shared glance, felt like a step toward something inevitable and terrifying. I was falling for him, and the realization hit me like a runaway horse. Work kept us busy, but the moments we stole felt sacred. One afternoon, as we repaired a water pump under the relentless sun, Caleb handed me a wrench, his fingers lingering against mine. "You're getting good at this," he said, his voice low, almost teasing. I grinned, wiping sweat from my brow. Had a good teacher. His laugh, rare and warm, felt like a gift. But the ranch wasn't all sunlit moments. Tensions simmered among the hands, especially with a new hire, Travis, a 30-year-old drifter with a chip on his shoulder. He didn't like me, thought I was too soft, too city, and he made it known with sharp comments and cold stares. Caleb noticed but said nothing, though I caught him watching Travis like a hawk. One evening, a fight broke out. Travis had been drinking, and his taunts turned ugly, aimed at me and then at Caleb. "What's with you two?" he sneered, his voice loud enough for the whole crew to hear. "City boy and the lone cowboy, always sneaking off together?" The words landed like a punch, and I felt the air shift. Rosa stepped in, her voice sharp, but Caleb was faster. He grabbed Travis by the collar, his face inches from the other man's. "You're done here," he said, his voice deadly calm. Travis left that night, but the damage was done. Whispers spread among the hands, and I felt eyes on me everywhere. Caleb avoided me for days after that, burying himself in work. I tried to focus, but the distance hurt more than I expected. One night, unable to stand it, I found him in the barn, brushing down his horse, Juniper. "Why are you shutting me out?" I asked, my voice breaking. He didn't look up. "You don't get it, Elliot. This place, it's not just a ranch. It's my life. And people like Travis, they talk. They ruin things." "Then let them talk," I said, stepping closer. "I'm not afraid." He turned to me then, his eyes blazing with something raw and unguarded. "You should be," he said, but his voice cracked, and in that moment, I saw the man beneath the armor. A man who'd loved and lost, who'd built walls to protect a heart that still bled. Without thinking, I reached for him, my hand finding his. He didn't pull away. Instead, he stepped closer, his breath warm against my skin. "Your trouble, city boy," he whispered, but there was no fight in his words. And then he kissed me. A fierce, desperate kiss that tasted of dust and longing. The world fell away, leaving just us, two broken souls finding solace in the dark. But the moment didn't last. A shout from outside broke us apart. Rosa, calling for help with a sick calf. Caleb pulled back, his face a storm of emotions, and ran to help. I stood there, my heart racing, knowing we'd crossed a line we couldn't uncross. The next day, Caleb was different, gentler, but still guarded. He didn't mention the kiss, and neither did I, but it hung between us, a silent promise. We worked side by side, and when our hands brushed, neither of us pulled away. The ranch hands noticed, but most, like Rosa and Jamal, offered quiet support, their smiles saying more than words ever could. Yet the whispers persisted, and I started to see the toll they took on Caleb. He was quieter, his shoulders heavier, like he was bracing for a storm. One night, he told me about his past. A lover named Ethan, who'd left when the pressure of small-town life became too much. "I don't blame him," Caleb said, his voice hollow, "but I can't go through that again." I wanted to promise I'd stay, that I was different, but the words caught in my throat, because deep down I wasn't sure. The city still called to me, a siren song of safety and familiarity. Could I really build a life here, in a place where love like ours was a risk? The ranch was a battlefield of emotions, and I was caught in the crossfire. Caleb and I were dancing on a knife's edge, our connection growing stronger even as the world around us threatened to tear it apart. Every stolen glance, every quiet moment, felt like a rebellion against the fear that haunted us both. One morning, as we rode out to check the herd, Caleb opened up. "This ranch was my father's," he said, his voice steady but laced with pain. "He was a hard man, didn't understand me. When I came out, he told me I'd never be enough for this place. I listened, my heart aching for the boy he'd been, fighting to prove himself in a world that didn't always accept him. 'You're more than enough,' I said, and the look he gave me, grateful, vulnerable, made me want to protect him from every hurt. But the outside world didn't care about our feelings. A local rancher, Tom Grayson, started stirring trouble, spreading rumors about Caleb and me. He'd always had a grudge against Double Creek, and our relationship gave him ammunition. At a town meeting, he confronted Caleb in front of everyone, his words dripping with venom. 'You're running this place into the ground. Monroe, letting city boys and others take over. The room went silent, and I saw Caleb's fists clench, but he didn't fight back. He just walked out, leaving me to follow. That night, I found him by the creek, staring at the water like it held answers he couldn't find. "I can't keep doing this," he said, his voice raw. "Fighting for this ranch, for myself, for us." The word us hung in the air, fragile and real. I knelt beside him, my hand on his shoulder. "Then let me fight with you," I said. He looked at me, his eyes searching, and for the first time, I saw hope flicker in them. We started to find a rhythm, a quiet defiance in our love. We'd work together during the day, sharing secret smiles, and at night, we'd steal moments by the fire or in the barn, our kisses fierce and fleeting. The hands rallied around us. Rosa with her fierce loyalty, Jamal with his quiet strength. Even Mia, who'd been skeptical at first, gave me a nod of approval. "You're good for him," she said one day, and I felt a surge of pride. But the pressure didn't let up. Grayson's rumors spread, and some suppliers started pulling back, threatening the ranch's livelihood. Caleb took it hard, blaming himself, but I saw the fire in him. The same fire that had drawn me to him from the start. One night, as we lay in the hayloft, the stars visible through a crack in the roof, he whispered, "I don't know if I can keep this place going, but I know I want you here." I wanted to stay, to build a life with him, but doubt gnawed at me. The city was safe, predictable. Here, every day was a fight. Not just for the ranch, but for the right to love who we wanted. Could I be strong enough for that? I didn't have an answer, but as I held him close, his heartbeat steady against mine, I knew I wasn't ready to let go. Then came the fire. It started small, a spark in the dry grass, but it spread fast, threatening the barn and the herd. We fought it together, Caleb leading with a calm that belied the chaos. I hauled water, my lungs burning, while he directed the hands, his voice steady even as flames licked the sky. When it was over, the barn was scorched but standing, and we collapsed in the dirt, exhausted but alive. Caleb grabbed my hand, not caring who saw, and I realized something. This was home. Not the ranch, not Montana, but him. The fire changed everything. It stripped away the last of our pretenses, leaving Caleb and me raw and exposed. We were no longer just a city boy and a cowboy. We were partners, fighting for something bigger than ourselves. In the days that followed, the ranch pulled together. The hands worked overtime to repair the damage, and the community surprised us. Neighbors who'd stayed silent during Grayson's attacks showed up with supplies and support. Even Lila's father, a gruff old rancher, clapped Caleb on the shoulder and said, "You're doing your daddy proud." For the first time, I saw Caleb stand a little taller, the weight of his past easing. But the fight wasn't over. Grayson doubled down, petitioning the county to rezone part of Double Creek's land, claiming it was mismanaged. Caleb was furious, but he didn't back down. He rallied the hands, and we spent nights drafting letters, gathering support, and preparing for the hearing. I saw a new side of him, strategic, passionate, a leader who wouldn't let his home slip away. The night before the hearing, we sat by the fire pit, the air cool and crisp. "If we lose the ranch," Caleb said, his voice quiet, "I don't know who I am." I took his hand, my resolve firm. "You're Caleb Monroe, and you're enough with or without this place." He looked at me, his eyes shining with unshed tears, and kissed me. Not with the desperation of before, but with a quiet certainty that felt like a vow. At the hearing, the room was packed. Ranchers, townsfolk, even some of Grayson's allies. Caleb spoke first, his voice steady as he laid out the ranch's history, its role in the community, and his vision for its future. I followed, nervous but determined, sharing how Double Creek had changed me, how it had given me a home and a purpose. When I mentioned Caleb, my voice broke, and I saw heads nod, eyes soften. Rosa and Jamal spoke too, their words fierce and proud, painting a picture of a ranch that wasn't just land but a family. In the end, the county voted to protect Double Creek. Grayson stormed out, but the room erupted in cheers. Caleb grabbed me, pulling me into a hug that felt like the world righting itself. "We did it," he whispered, and I knew he wasn't just talking about the ranch. That night, we celebrated with the hands, music and laughter filling the air. Caleb and I slipped away to the creek, the same place where we'd bared our souls weeks before. Under the stars, he took my hands, his voice steady. "I love you, Elliot, and I want you to stay, not just for the summer, but for good." My heart stopped, then soared. The city, my old life, felt like a distant memory. "I'm not going anywhere," I said, and meant it. We rebuilt the ranch stronger than before. Caleb opened up more, sharing stories of his childhood, his dreams, his fears. I found my place among the hands, not as a city boy but as one of them. The whispers in town didn't stop, but they grew quieter, drowned out by the community we'd built. Years later, I'd look back on that summer as the moment my life began. Double Creek wasn't just a ranch. It was a testament to love, resilience, and the courage to be who you are. Caleb and I faced every challenge together, our hands calloused, our hearts full. And every night, as we sat by the fire, his hand in mine, I knew I'd found something worth fighting for. A love that defied the open range, and a home that would never let us go.